Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and it's Friday.
Friday.
And with me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome all listeners to a fantastic Friday.
Did you say fantastic?
That's right.
You're getting good with your puns. We should never have gotten into September.
Fantastic.
Good one. Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And give you some food for thought.
Well, why don't we jump right into the story so we'll enjoy my morning cup of brew. What did you create today?
I have made for you a floral type Earl Grey. So it's got Earl Grey tea, and then I added some rose petals, marigolds, and lavender to give it that floral taste. Is that a miss?
For me.
I think it's delicious.
That's a 2 out of 5. But,
oh, wow.
But it tastes... So, there's a Fruit Loop. I like the Fruit Loop. But then there's this floral, it's like I'm drinking an actual flower leaf, petal.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Still good, though.
Well, good. I'm glad you can still somewhat sip on it during this whole time.
Yeah, I can enjoy it. So are we ready to get into the stories?
Oh, yes. For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story. Am I the a-hole? 26 female for reporting my neighbor, 38 female plus 39 male, son, 11 male, to the police for trespassing? I, 26 female, live in England. I own my home and understand I am fortunate, but I also worked hard for it. Any money I received or earned while working part-time till graduation went into my savings account. Most people on my street are social housing tenants. I'm still determining what that is, but they've explained that you're eligible for the scheme if you're on a low income. It's more secure than the private sector as you mostly get assured tenancy, even though there are different tenancy types. For a while, I got on well with my next-door neighbors, Emily and Ben. They also have 3 kids, 13 male, 9 female, 4 female. But soon I started experiencing a lot of problems from next door. I work from home often and I could hear shouting next door constantly. Ben is 5 foot 11 inches, 145 kilograms or 320 pounds, and quite loud and intimidating. And I could hear their kids screaming and crying. I had to ask them to lower their voices daily, and I even explained that I work from home. The next set of problems revolved around the 13-year-old son. I spotted their son climbing over a wall to get into my garden to get his football back, which at first I ignored it. Then, after it happened 10 times, I finally decided to speak with his parents, and I can't remember what I said entirely. Still, it was something like, hey, I just wanted to have a word as I have seen your son, insert name here, trespass 11 times to get his ball from my garden. I would appreciate it if you could get him to stop, as he is trespassing. And if he just came around to the front and knocked on my front door and asked for his ball back, I would be happy to collect it for him. The neighbors apologized and said they would make sure their son doesn't do it and knock. A few days later, their son did it again while I was in my lounge. I walked into my garden, which made him jump, and spoke with him. I told him I'd seen him trespass to collect his ball on various occasions. I told him I had talked with his parents and that trespassing is a crime, and I would appreciate it if he could just come to the front and knock in the future. He didn't say anything and just went back into his garden. I informed his parents and they apologized, but it continued. I got fed up with it and decided to invest in CCTV finally. I wrote a letter to residents on my road to give them a week's notice that CCTV is being installed at my address, and it will cover my entire garden, and it will also cover my doorway. I also wrote that I'm getting a Ring doorbell camera. After installing CCTV, I thought it would stop the kids from trespassing. It continued. I saved the footage, filed a police report against the son for trespassing, and sent all my evidence to the police. I knew there was a strong chance that nothing was going to happen, but I just wanted the son to have some responsibility. When my neighbors found out, they were mad as fuck with me, and since then, our relationship soured. My siblings found out about this and think I am a total a-hole for this. Am I the a-hole?
How hexilatingly titillating this story is.
Oh my goodness, what a tongue twister.
Thank you. So let's get into it because this sounds interesting. So OP is 26 and she says she has her own home.
Yes, I can actually tell you how much her home is.
Well, sure.
She actually provides that in the comments because people thought she had cheap housing.
Okay.
She actually puts down it's 535,000 pounds. Equivalent to United States, that's $673,000.
Wow. At 26, owning your first home.
She saved every penny for this. Good for her.
Yeah, that's amazing. So now we'll get into the meat of the story. OP says she has very loud neighbors. They have 3 kids, 1 boy and 2 girls.
Correct.
They share a fence in their backyards. Now, we have to understand that when we say this, the boy in question is 13. These are kids. So I guess at some point, the kids started playing soccer in their backyard. I understand that part of the world is called football, but soccer here in the US. So I'm sorry if I rub anyone wrong that way. But anyway, she says that the kids keep kicking the ball over her fence and into her yard. Probably not on purpose, but it's landing in her yard. And so the son, I'm guessing he hops over the fence and goes and retrieves it.
Correct.
The first couple times, she's being understanding about this. She goes over to the neighbor's house and notifies the parents that this is what's happening on a very occasional basis. And she asked politely if the kid would go over, knock on the door, and ask her to go and retrieve the ball for them. The parents then apologize to her and then say, yes, they'll definitely let their 13-year-old know. Obviously, that didn't happen. Or if it did, the 13-year-old ignored it. Most likely that is what happened, or maybe a little bit of both. This behavior continues. The ball keeps getting kicked over the fence. The boy keeps coming and retrieving it. And then that's when she's had it. She goes and buys a CCTV with what I guess she says a large coverage of her backyard and her front door.
Correct.
Lets all the neighbors know. I'm guessing that's probably something to do with how they do things legally in the UK. Gives them a week notice. So everyone understands what's happening. But I guess the kid continues to keep retrieving the ball on her property. So she has this all on recording now. And I guess she goes and files a report with the police and has all the evidence for it because she's sick and tired of people encroaching on her property when she's asked them multiple times to not do that anymore, to speak with their child. He is 13. He is old enough to understand. I say all of this because at the end of the day, if this is me, because I can only speak for me, I don't care, not even a little bit, that a kid is going and retrieving a ball in our yard. As long as the kid was being respectful of all the stuff that's in my backyard, because I didn't hear anywhere that he was vandalizing anything. All right, cool, he's hopping the fence, and I know people get really touchy about people touching their fences. They're having fun, they're enjoying their time. As long as he's being respectful, hopping over the fence, grabbing the ball and hopping back over. I did not hear where he was vandalizing, kicking flowers, or stealing things. All I heard was he was retrieving the ball and going back and playing with his siblings. That's not wrong to me. But I can also understand people get really touchy about their property. And you are allowed to feel that way because it is your property. You worked hard for it. If that's what you want to have happen in your property, then that's what's going to happen. I truly believe that everyone sucks. I definitely wouldn't have gone about it that way, but I also can respect how other people feel.
Well, the consensus on Reddit was pretty split. You had a lot of individuals who were saying that she was the a-hole because he's just getting a ball. Like, how square are you? And then the other half going, it's your property. You've requested that they stop and they didn't listen. You told the parents, you told the boy himself, and now you've taken matters into your own hands. That's just how it goes. Now, there was a very interesting point that was brought up, which here in the US, we actually have liability laws. You have some individuals who are saying if you are knowingly allowing this child to go on your property and something happens on your property, you're liable for those charges. Having those CCTV cameras up is essential for your protection, period.
Sure.
Now, the laws in the UK are a bit different. Yes, there are some civil trespassing, but it doesn't look like it's anywhere near along the lines of the US when it comes to being able to sue somebody for an inconvenience. Now, I will go ahead and provide my viewpoints. If this child was coming onto our property and ruining our garden or breaking something every time something would come over or essentially vandalizing it, I can understand getting more up in arms regarding having him come on the property again.
Sure.
I personally do not like that she requested that he stop and knock on the door to go ahead and request his ball back rather than hop over the fence.
I mean, I even had a neighbor that told me, the fences latch open and out.
Oh, yeah. Go in.
Yeah, I had a neighbor say, look, just when the ball goes over, just open it up. Make sure you shut it when you leave. I don't understand why there's not that type of understanding, but I also can see that everywhere is different in the world.
Oh, yes. Now, the little mischievous deviline in me says, as a child, if somebody were trying to hold me to this stipulation, I would go ahead and purposely throw that ball over that fence until they got so tired of me knocking on their door asking for it back that they'll just let me jump the fence.
That's so spicy.
Sorry, it's all the malicious compliance threads that I've been reading lately. But I seriously can't imagine a Dennis the Menace actually throwing the ball over enough times to where he doesn't have to knock on that front door anymore.
Like we've said, I can understand where you have the right to feel away.
I also understand her viewpoints when it comes to wanting her property respected.
Sure.
Well, let's go ahead and hop the fence to our next story. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my stepdaughter? Today, I, 34 female, yelled at my stepdaughter, 16 female, because she did not let me borrow her bikini. Let's call my stepdaughter Sarah. Sarah didn't let me borrow one of her many bikinis to a family pool party. Sarah has never really liked me, even though I've always treated her like my own. She has always been very cold to me since I married her dad. My husband, 43 male, always tells me to wait for her to come around. But it's been 5 years, and Sarah always loves to remind me on how I am not her mother and never was and never will be. Yesterday, I flipped at her since we are hosting a pool party/barbecue in our backyard for our family. I asked Sarah if I could borrow one of her bikinis since I recently lost tons of weight, 33 pounds, and we were about the same size, both hips and cups. She yelled at me and said that she would never let me borrow her anything, especially not her swimwear, and slammed the door in my face. I started crying and went to her dad and told him about her absurd behavior. She has not talked to me since and has completely ghosted me. Her dad said that he would talk to her about it, but hasn't yet. He says that he totally agrees with me and that I'm in the right, and she is just being dramatic and bitchy. I do not have the time to go buy any swimwear, and now I do not know what to wear at all. I care about my look since I'm quite conventionally attractive, and now I don't even want to host this event anymore. Sarah's behavior has ruined this get-together for me and her dad. Mother-in-law called today earlier and called me some names, and my great husband uninvited her from the family pool party. This resulted in a big chaos since she was going to bring most of the snacks, and me and my husband were very busy with other things, and Sarah won't come out of her room. I've tried talking some sense into her, but she won't listen to me or respond to me. Husband is very stressed about this whole situation, and so am I. We both think she should just borrow me the bikini for the day. After all, she has so many of them, and if the roles swapped, I would have happily gave her my bikini. So Reddit. Am I the a-hole?
Oh my Lanta. So let's see if I understand all the facts. OP is 36?
34.
Okay. And her husband is 43?
Correct.
And the stepdaughter in question is 16?
Yes.
Now, ROP has been married with her husband for 5 years?
Yes, I would assume so.
Okay. So she would have met stepdaughter somewhere around 11, 10-ish age range.
Yes.
Okay. I wonder what happened to their rapport to make the relationship what it is today, because she says that her stepdaughter is constantly reminding her that she is not any type of motherly figure in her life. So some stuff went down along the way, I gotta believe, because normally those things don't just crop up. Reasons happen.
Someone tried to be an authoritarian?
Yeah, maybe before they were able to build the trust with their stepchild. So P's about to, I guess they're throwing a pool party for the family.
Correct.
And now she's going to her stepdaughter, who she knows she does not have a good rapport with, and asking for one of her bikinis. Now, She says it herself. She's lost a lot of weight recently. 30 some odd pounds?
33.
Good for you. I guess the stepdaughter did not want to hear any of that. She yells in her face and then slams the door. Can I ask this? 'Cause this is a weird thing in the story that she brings up. She doesn't have time to go buy a bikini. Fair enough. We all have a bunch of stuff we got to do throughout the day. I'm not sure what her day looked like, that particular one. But she has enough time to pin out an Am I the A-hole Reddit post. Okay.
A poorly written one, but yes.
But she has enough time to do that. Did she have enough time to answer people? Was she answering people in this post?
I have no idea because she no longer exists.
Okay. Well, I guess I go back to my main point. You had enough time to complain about how much time you don't have. Can't get behind that. So that one's a little weird. Now, maybe she might have started this with this being a way to get closer to her stepdaughter. Maybe sharing those type of things. So she confides in her husband, and then her husband agrees with her that the daughter should have just given her a bikini because she's got so many of them.
Or is he agreeing because he just doesn't want to deal with her?
Which is probably more the answer. They have a bad relationship. That's the for sure thing I know. You guys should have probably gone to some family counseling long ago. OP, you're definitely the wiener jacket in this situation. If you knew that was the relationship that you had with her, and you were the one that was throwing this pool party, I don't hear anywhere where you were forced to do this. This was out of the blue planning. You could have made enough time and enough awareness to go find a bikini that fit.
Well, the consensus was overwhelmingly our poster is the a-hole. In fact, there's a lot of things that I thought were interesting points which the Redditors brought up. The first one being is, yes, you would have a good segment of women that would be okay with allowing another woman to borrow the bikini. The other half says no, that's not okay. The half that says yes, even those are divided even further and say, you know, I'd only let really close family borrow something that is so intimate. Now, I find it funny because we had one commenter that says, look, your privates have touched my dad's privates. It's not touching where my privates have touched. That's gross. I found that analogy to be quite funny. Now, let's go ahead and go over to the other points. One person said, you've lost almost 35 pounds. You didn't lose that in a night. You lost it over a period of time. You would have known that you needed to go ahead and purchase a bikini well ahead of time. You had other commenters that actually said, are you trying to flex? Because that's exactly what all of this sounds like. You're trying to cause drama because you want to say that you can wear a 16-year-old girl's swimsuit.
Interesting.
Why else push for it?
I thought it was maybe for her to try to bond with a 16-year-old, but I can also understand that there being a more nefarious goal there.
Regardless, everybody's telling the OP, grow up, because you clearly need to change your priorities here.
Well, you can see it in their relationship.
Oh, yes.
Something went wrong a while ago and she's not caring about it.
If anything, the moment that you ask the question and you get the no, that no should be respected.
Which is probably why the relationship is where it's at, because no was probably never respected.
Well, that pool party's definitely a bust. Whew, let's go on this date and see if we can get a good deal.
Nice transition.
Thank you. For our next story. Am I the a-hole for being embarrassed with my cheapskate boyfriend?
Oh, no.
We've been dating for about 4 months, and mostly it's been good. He's cute, smart, and very successful. The only downside is that he's almost addicted to buying things that are on sale or have coupons despite being a vice president at his company. I'm not talking about sometimes or even most of the time. I would be all right with that. He never buys anything at full price. Never. He plans his cooking around what's on sale that week at the grocery stores. All of his clothes are bought on sale or clearance, even his socks and boxers. Last week, we were at my friend's house for dinner and she commented on his shirt. He proudly said he got it on clearance last year for $20. I was mortified. Lastly, we don't go to any restaurant unless he finds a coupon or they're running some kind of special. Things came to a head last night when we went out to dinner. He had a digital coupon for buy one, get one free. For some reason, The restaurant's computer didn't recognize the deal, and the poor cashier couldn't make it work. We were holding up the crowded line because he refused to pay for both dinners. Finally, the cashier called the manager, but he was busy somewhere else in the restaurant. While we waited, the people behind us were getting annoyed. I was so embarrassed. I left him standing in line by himself and went to the car. We argued the entire drive home. We were supposed to go to the movies because he got free tickets, but I wasn't in the mood, so he dropped me off. We haven't texted today at all. When I talked to my friends at brunch, they didn't see a problem with it, and I found it frustrating that they didn't understand how embarrassing it is. Am I the a-hole, or is this normal?
What a spicy meatball! You keep bringing them.
Thank you.
All right, so let's see if I understand the facts here. OP is how old?
Doesn't say.
Okay. So she meets this fellow, and they've been dating for now 4 months.
Correct.
That's pretty fresh. So they're getting to know each other. She knows enough about him to say, though, that he is a very frugal buyer.
Even though he's the vice president of his company.
I don't understand what status you have in life makes it weird to be frugal. But it sounds like he does do it to probably more of an extreme than most. Because, I mean, you and I look for deals. Now, we don't plan our life around them. But we do look for deals. I think everyone should. Saving a little bit of money helps.
Oh, yes.
You can reallocate it to other things in your life.
I can understand it for going out to eat or even just getting like some stuff that's sort of a one-time on clearance. When it comes to like doing your grocery shopping, I think that's a little on the far side for me.
Well, and I can understand it for the people that have to, because there are situations where you do have to be frugal.
Yes.
Obviously, she's pointing out that that's not something that he needs to do. But the thing is, you know how people stay wealthy?
Deals,
and they don't spend their money. Like, learning how to spend your money is just as important as making it.
You mean I can't buy it on everything all at once?
Yeah.
Oh, darn.
I know.
At full price?
At full price.
But if you get it at half price, it's not as valuable.
Oh, apparently that's how a lot of people look at things in life. But
I think that's silly.
Like I said, it sounds like he's a little more extreme with it, but who am I to say that that's not okay? He has parameters in which he does things. Okay, I can respect that. So I guess we'll get to the situation. They are eating out one evening. He has a coupon for buy one dinner, get one free.
Ooh, I love those.
That's a pretty crazy coupon. I've never seen one like that before. I've heard like different things on the menu, but not a full meal for free. So that's interesting. So they're, I guess, settling the tab at the front, and apparently the machine isn't taking the coupon, and it's holding up a big line. And I'm certain if you've been in public and any type of thing, if you're the one that you feel is holding up a line, a certain amount of, not maybe anxiety, but no, because I never feel like that. But from the OP, I can hear in her writing, and she's getting anxiety and embarrassment.
It's like pressure to get it fixed.
I guess her boyfriend refuses and is refusing to pay for that other meal to the point where now they have to get the manager. Well, the manager, after being called, is busy doing other things in the restaurant. So this is making the line hold up even longer. So she says, I think she goes to the car at this point to wait this out. And then afterwards, she doesn't say if he was able to get the coupon to work or not, but
I'm assuming he did.
I guess that really doesn't matter. He gets to the car, and then they have an argument about this. And I'm guessing it's because she was complaining that he's being too frugal. Is it wrong to fight for something that's on a coupon?
I don't think it is.
I don't think he was being aggressive or angry. She doesn't say he was yelling. It was putting his foot down and going, look, I have a coupon. It says one meal free. I want to use my coupon.
Correct. As long as you're within the limitations
on the
of
date
the coupon
and the requirements,
then you should be fine to use it. And if their system's not working, that's not your problem. I think a lot of people mistake holding your ground for what you know is right versus holding your ground for what you know you're trying to
swindle someone out of.
Exactly.
Or take advantage of. Yeah, and I can get that.
I've seen businesses where they've had coupons, and even though everything on it was met to the T, they won't honor it. If that's the case, you would have never gone there to begin with.
Sure.
the company essentially swindled you.
He stood his ground. You're allowed to do that in life. So they have the argument in the car because she doesn't agree with it. Now, it's funny. He has free tickets to movies that night, and that was their plan. But she's so upset about the whole thing that he just drops her off, and I'm assuming he just goes to the movie because it's a free movie. Why not? But I guess they probably should have talked, but that's 4 months in. A lot of people don't even figure out communication till well into their marriage. So me saying that however old she is and 4 months in, obviously they're not going to have known how to do that yet. But anyway, he goes to the movies and they haven't texted since. Truly, I believe this. You're only 4 months into that relationship. He's already showing you who he is. If this isn't something that you want, then it's probably time to dip. Because that's not going to change. People's spending habits normally live with them for the rest of their lives. It's really hard to dig out of bad habits. Or good ones. This is how he likes to spend his money. And if you're not appreciating that for what it is, then you need to get out of it. In my mind, OP, I think you would be the a-hole for being embarrassed for him. I hope that you learn that standing your ground is a lot different than what you think this was.
Well, the consensus is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. And let me go ahead and give you a snippet into some of the conversation that was happening in the comment section. Our OP said, "No, he makes a very good living. We haven't discussed our salary in detail, but I know some people who work for the same company. They tell me he's way up there." Someone responded with, "And what about your salary prevents you from offering to pay for the dinner if you were so embarrassed? How are you not being cheap when you expect someone else to pay?" Another person responded to that and said, No, you don't understand. Everyone knows it's perfectly reasonable assumption going into a relationship that if your spouse makes more, you don't have to pay for a single thing." A third person said, "Mom, I can finally recognize sarcasm." And the last person says, "And she keeps not answering."
That's just the way it be sometimes.
In the end, the consensus along the lines was, how can you even be embarrassed about him having a $20 shirt?
I don't get that.
I think a lot of commenters were seeing how skewed their view on value truly was. And essentially that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And yes, after her comment regarding that essentially he makes a lot of money, but then she wouldn't let people know how much she made, that was the only comment she made on her account.
Wow.
And that really rubbed a lot of people wrong.
Well, hopefully she got to see some of where she's wrong, because her judging someone like that, that's not good.
No. I would say her boyfriend would be a moderate, frugal person. Only reason why it would be a moderate is because he even looks for groceries and kind of like plans his meals around it.
And that's not even that bad though.
No, because being frugal, I hate the light that gets painted into people who are frugal. It just means that they want to spend their money in a way where they value what they spend their money on.
We're not talking about someone like, I remember watching something a long time ago where someone was saving their mouthwash by like gargling it and then spitting it back into the jug and then reusing it the next day and kept doing that. That type of frugal is a little different than what we're talking about.
That is that is all.
But I feel like maybe that's the image that pops up in people's heads when they hear someone frugal, is being like that. When I speak about frugal, or when we're talking about this gentleman, it's only solely just learning how to spend money wisely. Like that's it. If you can get something at a deal, why wouldn't you not?
I think it took me many years later to realize that getting something on a deal doesn't mean that it loses its value.
Yeah.
And I think that's all that she needs to learn. Just because he has a $20 shirt that was once, $50, just as an assumption, doesn't mean that it's no longer a $50 shirt. It's a $50 shirt that he got for a deal at $20.
Well, the truth is the value is in the person who gets it.
That's
even
very
if it's 50
true.
or 20, if you really like the shirt, guess what? That's a great value.
There's a lot of things I would never spend money on, no matter how cheap it is.
If it was $1 or if it was $100, that's it. It has to mean something to you first.
Well, I know that she didn't see the value in the time that her boyfriend put into just going on a date with her, but let's see if this next family can find the value of spending time with each other during summer.
Let's do this.
For our next story, am I the a-hole for not letting my niece help in my bakery anymore? Throwaway for privacy. I, 35 female, own a small bakery. I'm very happy with it and proud of my work. I have 2 employees who work part-time, and for the most part, it's just me. My sister-in-law approached me at the beginning of summer and asked if I would let my niece, female 11, help out in the bakery over the school break. She has been getting really into baking and loves watching content creators baking and was apparently just dying to be able to job shadow / help out in a bakery. I was hesitant, but I said yes, and I hated it. Every single minute that her niece spent in my bakery this summer was the only time I've ever had any regrets opening my business. Whatever the opposite of helpful was, that was what my niece was. My employees didn't enjoy being there, and I didn't enjoy her being there at all. We were 3 very grumpy people all summer. I had hopes that she would get better, but she didn't. She started back to school this past week, and I have never felt so relieved. I thought many times about telling my sister-in-law that she couldn't come back during the summer, but since I had made the promise, I kept up with it. My sister-in-law stopped by the house yesterday to drop something off for my husband. She told me my niece had absolutely loved her experience this summer and wanted to know if she could come back a couple Saturdays a month. I told her that unfortunately that wasn't going to work, and that going forward, I didn't think it was a good idea for my niece to help out. I told her it just wasn't productive for us. My sister-in-law was very unhappy. She told me that my niece had loved her summer at the bakery and was so looking forward to continuing. I told her that I was sorry, but I had a business to run and couldn't continue having her help out. This dissolved into a shouting match that my husband eventually broke up. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law have been sending me nasty messages about breaking a girl's heart. My husband said my niece called him and was very upset, but he stands by me and understands that I can't let this bring down my workplace. So, am I being the a-hole?
Wow, this is such a spicy beautiful. Good get.
Thank you.
Let's hop into this story. So, OP is how old?
35.
35. Has her own business.
Yes.
Baker. Fantastic.
Love bakers.
How long has she had the business? Is she out of that 5-year hump, or is she still in that first 5?
I don't think that question was ever asked.
Okay. Well, see, I could understand where that pressure's coming from, because that first 5 years in any type of business opening is very important.
Well, she says it's small, so I would imagine it's still growing.
So she says she has a niece, and the niece is about 11?
Correct.
Interesting that they would even have her in the shop to begin with.
So just to provide some clarification, she job shadowed. She didn't touch or make anything.
Okay.
They were very clear about that. She was literally just there to watch, and she was always underfoot.
And so let me ask this. How many days a week was she shadowing?
I would have to say she was there.
Every single day for the summer?
It sounded like it. It didn't sound like it was a set schedule, like Monday through Friday. So what she said in the comments section was that because she really was sort of in the way, they had put her where she could just watch somebody decorating the cakes. And then on top of that, they only had one task for her to do. And it was when we ran low of a certain supply, let us know so we can go ahead and get it filled. And apparently she botched that.
Okay. Well, she is 11. Look.
The poster actually put in the comment section she might be 11, but she acts like she's 5.
Okay.
And she throws tantrums. She doesn't say anything about her niece being autistic or neurodivergent in any way.
Okay.
Just that she's very entitled and spoiled.
Okay.
And it kind of shows with just her behavior. Anytime that they would tell her to do something, it just kept stressing her and her 2 other employees
Sure,
out.
and that's bad. Especially when you're talking about a small shop.
Now, her aunt did try, because the OP actually put in the comment section that while she was watching, I guess during the work week, on the weekend, she did try and teach her how to bake so that she could actually utilize everything around her rather than strictly just watching during business hours.
So let me throw this out, because it sounds like the 11-year-old spent a lot of time with her aunt. So I want to kind of go into this. It sounds like the parents were getting free childcare and not having to deal with their spoiled child all summer.
That's what it sounded like to me too.
And now they're like, hey, once or twice a month, every other Saturday, we would love for her to be with you again, so that way we can plan some more fun things for us and not have to deal with our spoiled child.
That's fair.
Especially when they're like saying she really wasn't doing a whole lot there to begin with. So I'm going to have to say, in my opinion, OP, you're definitely not the a-hole. I'm happy you gave it to him straight, though. You dealing with that and at the detriment of your small business, that's not healthy. Especially when you're dealing with, she only has 2 other employees.
Correct.
When you're working with that type of group, the cohesiveness is so important. And breaking that up with an 11-year-old being under tow like that, I can only imagine that being sustainable for only so long.
So the OP actually makes it clear in one point. She didn't realize her employees had an issue with her niece until after her niece was back in school.
Well, good for the employees.
She thought, at least our OP thought, that all of these irritating or pet peeves was strictly just her. And she was just trying to just be a cool aunt that was just trying to be understanding. And then it came to light that her other 2 employees also felt the same way. And they were so, I hate to say it, I guess relieved, because their work environment was able to get back to where it was more productive and happier and stress-free.
But good on them for not allowing that to like bleed over onto the child while she's there. So at least they were able to keep cool and calm and professional up until she was able to go back home. It sounds like the niece like almost lived with her. Did they say, was she being dropped off every day to the shop?
I would have to assume
or is this like she's sleeping over all summer long with her aunt, and again, the parents are just getting a free pass to let the kid not have to be with them?
She doesn't say. However, the OP does say she'll burn her business down before having her come back into her baking shop.
Hey, I can respect the honesty. And the problem with the parents getting so upset, or not the parent, the mother.
Correct.
Her getting so upset, I just wonder why. If you can't respect that someone's going, look, it's at the detriment of my business. She didn't chastise your daughter in front of her. She didn't attack her. She simply said, look, going forward, that's not going to be something we're going to do. That's it.
She just said it stopped productivity from being
Why couldn't you respect that? Well, I mean, given all that we just said, obviously ROP isn't the a-hole.
And the consensus is that she's not the a-hole. She didn't put it, and apparently was being such an amazing aunt that her niece wanted to come back. So she didn't make this an experience that was awful for her niece. But her views and how she feels like her business should succeed should be respected.
Agreed.
Additionally, I love the OP even more because she said after finding out that her 2 employees were just dealing with this the best that they could, she said she's talking to her accountant and she's going to take them to an amazing dinner.
Fantastic. She sounds like an awesome person. I hope that her little bakery succeeds.
Me too. Well, sometimes we can have our cake and eat it too, and sometimes we can't. But let's go to our last story and see what's happening with this vacation. Am I the a-hole for kicking only my sister-in-law out, which meant she had to fly home early from vacation? I, 29 female, have a half-brother, James, 37. James is married to Lindsay, 35, and they have 2 kids, 4 female and 2 male. I invited James, Lindsay, and the kids to visit me this past week, and they were meant to stay until next Friday. Lindsay and I have always got on fine, except for the fact that she's always had a weird attitude to me being a stay-at-home mom/wife. She always asks me if I'm going to ask my husband before making non-essential purchases, or asks me if I feel bad relaxing while he's working, or suggests I do things for him as a thank you to him since I'm apparently not doing anything else. I know that James and Lindsay are big on splitting costs, and while he pays for everything for both kids, he he won't pay for Lindsay, despite making about 25 times her salary. Being that that's the relationship they're happy with, I just roll with the comments because my marriage must look weird to Lindsay. However, there is a line. A few days ago, we were sitting on our rooftop drinking wine after the kids went to bed. Lindsay was admiring the view and made a comment about how much our apartment cost. James must have told her, and asked if my name was on the deed. She then said, half of X amount penthouse just for lying on your back? Sex work is way more lucrative than I thought. Both my husband and James laid into her for the comment. I was obviously furious and told Lindsay first thing in the morning she had to get out. She wasn't staying here after speaking to me like that, especially when she wasn't even apologetic. I felt bad for ruining James and the kids' trip, but both my husband and I were too angry to have Lindsay stay there. The next morning, Lindsay asked if she could stay. She said James wasn't willing to end the trip early and wanted to stay, but she couldn't afford to stay in a local hotel. She blamed her comment on the wine, but her apology/explanation seemed so insincere and was clearly based on having no choice. I told her this and said even if she did mean it, I just needed some space from her and didn't want her around after what she said because when put on top of what she's been saying for years, it's obvious that's what she thinks. James then said he wasn't paying for her hotel because it was her own actions that got her kicked out, and she would have to fly home early and he'd fly back with the kids as planned, which is what happened. Lindsay has since laid into me over text and social media for forcing her to go home early without her kids. Both my mother and James's have said I was wrong for kicking Lindsay out. James's mother said I should have let her stay for James's sake and not invited them back. My mother says I should have kicked all of them out because now Lindsay has to be away from her kids. I don't think I'm the a-hole for kicking out the person who made the comment, but not the person who defended me and innocent kids. Did I handle it like an a-hole?
Tis a peak. It's okay. Tis a speak. Tis a peak spicy meatball, my lord. This story is interesting and layered in a lot of projection of people's relationships onto other relationships by a lot.
Quite a bit.
OP is having her family come over for the week. They're having a vacation. OP is how old?
29.
Okay. And her half-brother, how old is he?
37.
Okay.
And his wife is 35.
So they're all around the same-ish age. But her half-brother and his wife are coming over for a vacation with their kids. I guess this is the first night that they're there that this incident's going down.
Yes, at least the beginning of their trip.
She says it. Throughout Lindsay's relationship with our OP, she's made some offhanded comments projecting her relationship onto OP.
And they were backhanded compliments.
Yeah.
If you could even call it a compliment.
And she's been doing that for, I guess, the entirety of their relationship. And like I said, Lindsay is definitely projecting her relationship onto OP to the point where she thinks it's okay to chastise other people and how their relationships operate. Not all relationships will operate the way Lindsay's does. Lindsay's relationship with her husband.
It's extreme splitting of finances between the two of them.
Yes, very. I guess they're drinking on top of the roof. Lindsay definitely had a little more to drink than she should have because it sounded like it gave her a lot of liquid courage to say that completely foul thing she did on a vacation on night one. So she was just ready for the smoke. That had such a reaction that not only did OP's husband, but then Lindsay's husband stop what they were doing and defended our OP. That's extreme. When the entire room tells you, nuh-uh, that's what happened. She crossed a big boundary. Now, this boundary was so big that OP and her husband had a conversation and said, she has to go. We're not dealing with you anymore. On a week-long trip that was supposed to be for the family on vacation, they said that you are no longer allowed to sleep in our residence. Your husband and your kids are still allowed to sleep here, but you are no longer. Wow. I don't see any problem with that because the husband and those kids didn't start that problem. Now, it's funny because the husband tells Lindsay that he's not paying for her to be in a hotel for her to stay close during this vacation, because that's 6 or 7 days they still have. So I'm guessing what they did was they had insurance on their flight and changed her flight from a week later to probably the day after. So she goes home and then proceeds to berate ROP on social media and in text about how she was forced out. Where do you get off? I think OP even says it. She hears out the apology, but it sounds so fake and unapologetic that they just can't look past it. So she was still willing to extend the olive branch, but ROP knows through her history with Lindsay that that's not real. I don't think anyone should have to deal with that. I don't care if you're on vacation. You should have known better. That's not your home. That's not your relationship. That sucks that Lindsay has the viewpoint of ROP the way she does, though. She created that incident, and at some point you do have to pay for your actions. In my opinion, OP, you're not the a-hole. You did what you needed to do, and I'm happy that your husband supported you.
Well, the consensus was you're not the a-hole, OP. Additionally, let me go ahead and read a comment that sums up quite nicely what most commenters put down. Because it was her own actions that got her kicked out. There, this, and that. This is all that is needed, and that is all needed to be said. She accused you of being a sex worker, and while it's nothing wrong to be one, it's not something you say to the innkeepers while you travel. She disrespected you, your husband, and your home, so you threw her out. Good riddance to bad rubbish. Not the a-hole.
I agree with that.
As for the mothers, one of them saying that the husband and the kids should have also gone back and been kicked out, I think this is a good opportunity to really talk about equality and fairness.
Could you imagine, though, being the husband, coming back after a week on vacation, coming back into that house? What that must be like on that first 5 or 10 minutes when you walk through the door.
I feel like he holds all the cards in this relationship.
I think it's pretty bad. We didn't even touch that topic, though. They sound very unhealthy themselves.
Oh, they do. However,
that still doesn't give her the right to do what she did to ROP.
No. If you're talking about equality, because they're of the same family unit, yes, all of them should have been kicked out. If you're talking about equality, that's what equality is. They're a family unit. They were invited as a family. Therefore, they should have all been equally kicked out as a family. Now, would that be considered fair? I don't believe so.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think that one person's actions should justify everybody else paying for that person's actions.
Especially in this type of regard.
And I think that's where a lot of people can have opinions on others, but you need to respect everyone.
Keep it to yourself. Not on a family vacation in their house.
This is the one thing that my father preached. If you don't have anything nice, don't say anything at all. I truly hope that Lindsay and James get that relationship looked at, because clearly Lindsay's got some issues with it. She's taking it out on every other woman that has the relationship that she wants.
Sure.
But she doesn't have, I would say, the backbone to fix what are problems in her own marriage.
But she got the backbone to say something at someone else's house.
So bad.
Yeah. Interesting way to end off Friday. Was that our last story?
That was our last story.
All right. Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We are regularly posting on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
Well, as always, listeners, we look forward to seeing your opinions in the comments below. And I'll leave you with the question I always do on Fridays. What are the weekend plans?
Hopefully it's filled with a little bit of spooky shopping.
And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.